Hi, welcome to another episode of I Mustache You Something. For once, this is the first time ever that it's my fault that Mitch isn't here. Every other time it's Mitch's fault, just for the record. But this time I said we are going to record on Thursday, and I thought today was Thursday. Today's not Thursday.
And I thought
So
I'd forgotten. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. You scare me usually every week. So I'm like, oh, okay, I can do it. I can do it.
like literally and like Cherif, I was like, where would you even get the impression that we weren't recording today? And you're like, because you said Thursday. I'm like, and it uh, it's not Thursday.
Tuesday.
I'm like, I'm looking at the message right here saying we're recording on Thursday, and he's like, yeah, and it's not Thursday. So yeah, listen, I think this is a topic that comes up often here, which is like people don't have like a great grasp of reality. Like we make our own realities, we make our own perceptions, and then we're mad at other people who actually live in reality because their real reality is not conforming to our false reality. And
That's right.
like I think genuinely speaking, like for myself, the best that I can do is when other people are doing this, remind myself, I'm like, Mena, like you're not exempt from this, right? Like if I'm dealing with a patient or a coworker, like whoever who's created their own like fabricated reality, you know, I I like, okay, just see what you can do to roll with it and work within their reality. Cause like it's shocking to the system to try to invite someone to, accept that it's it's actually Tuesday, not Thursday. So we also have Matthew, who we added to our group chat, and I was hoping that Mitch would be here, so we could introduce Matthew to the show, right? So he would be able to watch something as sort of like a welcome. We look forward to recording with you, um, and I think we can save that for Thursday. But I want you guys
The real
both.
Thursday, the actual Thursday.
Yeah, right. Like Thursday for the rest of the world, not everybody
Yom
but Mina.
Goma. Isn't it Goma? Isn't it Yom
No,
Goma?
Chamis.
Oh,
Kamis.
Yom Chamis. Sorry, Yom Chamis.
Um, so that gives us sort of like a free day today. Usually I have like some sort of thing where I mustache you. Um, but today we can do a short episode that will
All right,
be
let me ask you a
posted.
question. I got
Yeah.
an idea. I got an idea.
Okay.
This is something I was sitting with a friend a few days ago. Uh, and we were discussing theological things, right? So then I came up with this idea, and tell me if you've heard of it before, right? When did Lucifer fall? Did he fall before the creation of man or after the creation of man? Just give me your answer, your gut answer. Don't give me a reason why. Just give me your gut answer. What's the answer?
I think Sharif will say doesn't matter and what are the pastoral implications.
Exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
I'll say I haven't read the answer anywhere, and I prefer to answer things that I've read, not things that I've sort of heard in passing. So I don't think you're going to get a really decent answer from either one of us.
Well, okay, good. Since I didn't expect
So, no,
anything
I
more,
might
I
have an
did.
answer.
Oh, okay,
Might
Oh,
go.
juicy.
might have an answer.
Okay, go
So,
for it.
is the fall a point in time or a process?
No, the fall, Adam and Eve, the
No, no,
fall,
I'm talking
a
about
point in time.
Lucifer.
Oh,
Lucifer.
Lucifer's fallen time. I I assume it's not a process. I assume it wasn't a process because you're talking about beings that exist outside of time. So there can't be a process. unless you're talking about time. And then if you're
Yeah,
talking about
so,
time, then you must be talking about post-creation.
yeah. So what I've read is, or what I've learned is the creation of man is to kind of not compensate, but to kind of show that there is an obedient creation after the disobedience of Satan or
Well,
Lucifer.
that was a failed mission.
Well,
That was oops number two. I was like, if you repeat the same
but
mistake
but
twice, expecting different results,
but,
you're
but oops
insane.
number two has a solution.
Oh yeah. No, no, I'm gonna give you the answer. Let me give you the answer.
Yeah,
Okay, all
tell
right,
me.
John. Let me give you the answer. Right, this is
First, do you believe in Lucifer?
yeah, of course.
That's a question
So,
before one. Do you
yeah,
really believe that he was an angel?
yeah. Of course, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I? Yeah.
Hmm.
So then
Wait, hold on.
you what?
Does that mean Cherif doesn't?
Well,
Ask him. Ask him. I don't know.
yes, cool. Lucifer.
Yeah. So
No,
you
I
don't
meant,
believe?
yeah, the Lucifer that's part of our podcast. The one wearing the lilac shirt.
Yeah.
Lucifer is talking here. Sorry, guys. Say you need to get out. Okay. So tell me your answer, and I'll get you my argument.
All right. This is the answer. Right. So Lucifer, we've known, was the light bearer, right? One of the most beautiful of God's creatures, and
Hmm.
so close to God, and all these things. And then we're told the story of somehow Lucifer wanted to be God and thought he could beat God and thought he could win and be God. But the story never made sense to me, right? So this is what I have. I have Lucifer being created as this beautiful, beautiful creature, a seraph, right? Which means snake, I'm told, right? Um, and God takes this dust creature, this fornicating, farting, burping animal that we are, and breathes life into him, giving him a soul. And more than that, making him in his own likeness and image, something that the seraphim don't have, something angels don't have. They're not creating God's image. And
Hmm.
even more than that, God is now sending them on this theotic journey of theosis where they are becoming more and more like him, something that the angels were never given the opportunity for. And that's when Satan falls. That's when Satan falls, when he says, hold on a second, this makes no sense. He thinks they're going to become like him. I'm going to
Hmm,
subvert the whole process.
hmm,
And bam, that's when he falls.
hmm,
That's Isn't that interesting, bro? I
hmm.
mean, seriously, like I've always heard the story before in my mind. It's always been, I think in all our minds, it's always been before he falls. And I think then that adds to the Isaiah thing. I saw, Satan falling like lightning, I mean, this was a real visual, sense that he saw. And I don't know, I think that's what happened.
Hmm.
Thoughts?
So where are you getting that? Because it's a nice story, but
No,
where?
I got it right out of my head. I'm telling you, I'm sitting there
Okay.
talking about it. And because a lot has changed in my life over the last like year or so. And the thing that did it, and I was telling this to my friend, I said, I was a very materialist Christian. And I don't mean materialism like buying, cars and watches and, I don't do that, you know. But I'm talking about materialist in the sense that I believed in as little as I needed to believe, like I was not this, invoking of the saints and the angels and living in sort of that nice, pure, beautiful, old Egyptian woman from Shobra in black and the tattoo of Jesus on her throat, on her chin, just living in this very, very. She lives in a spiritual world where the angels are right around the corner, and the saint that she touched the picture is right there. Um, I was very materialist. I was never sort of like, okay, I believe in a resurrection. I believe in what I have to believe. But everything else, if I don't have to believe, I'll choose not to believe it because it's not rational, because it doesn't make sense in my mind. And then, and then, and then the thing that started changing my mind was the Epstein files, right? Because you're reading the Epstein files, all these, people are having sex with children and they're just cannibalizing them and eating them and drinking their blood. I was like, that's just garbage. Like, that doesn't happen. This is all just stories or whatever they are. It's sick people's imagination, but it can't be true. And I was going by on that for a while. And then Amory's like, "Well, why do you think it's not true?" And I said, "Well, because no one does that." And she said, "What do you mean? All of human history is filled with cannibalism and filled with sacrificing of children and raping of kids and all these other things. So if these different, yeah, the Aztecs, whether they're the Aztecs or whomever else, this is a part of who they are. So if these people were worshiping demons back then by doing this, maybe they're worshiping demons now by doing all these crazy things." And I'm like, well, okay, that makes sense. But then I thought, if God had, if there are all these demons running everything, this demonic sort of force that we're up against in this really incalculable way everywhere we turn, then God's not sitting on his, rear end doing nothing. God must have all his forces enabled as well. And because we know we have a humble God who likes to share, like he shares with us in his work, he's allowing these angels and saints and things to share in his work. Here, you take care of this, you take care of that, you take care of this. Not because God doesn't, but because God's sharing in their ability to, here I can do something for God, and he's given them all that. And then I started thinking, well, it, how did the demons come about? And then I asked that question. And I came up with that answer while we were talking, right then and there. But I think we live in a much more spiritual world. And I had this whole thing. You ever hear this Emba Wennis thing? You know who Emba Wennis is?
Yeah, he's a martyr from Luxor, a kid
He's a
martyr.
martyr, but he's like in charge of Lost and Found, I hear. So
Yeah,
it's true.
is
So
the Coptic version of Anthony of Padua.
Oh yeah, I don't know any of these. So to me, it was all that stuff was very, very sort of humbucker. And so I'll tell you a story. A couple of like a month ago, Quinn had, he wanted this gold cross and a chain for Christmas, right? So Emery got it for him. And then about a month ago, we're at a friend's pool, and he loses it, right?
Mm.
And he's so sad and he's crying, he's crying. I was like, don't worry about it, we'll get you another. But then I'm sitting there, I'm like, I heard that if you ask a saint, one of these special saints, to find you a cross. So I said, hey, Embenofer. That's what I thought. I thought it was Embenofer. And again, a guy I never even heard of before either, but I had heard of his names interchangeably, right? So I said, Embenofer, can you please find, his cross, and make him happy? And of course, nothing happened, nothing happened. And for 2 weeks, we went back to the house 2 weeks later, and I said, "Hey, did you ever find a cross?" And she said, "No, we still haven't found it." I said, and I said, "Oh man, I even prayed to Emba Nofera to find it." And she said, "No, it's not Emba Nofera. It's Emba Wennis. You got to ask Emba Wennis." And I said, "You would think you
Aminofair is part of the electrical
you
system.
yeah you would you
Lost and
would think."
found is
You would think you'd get at least a pickup call. It's like I'm going to say, "Hey, can you pick up on line 7? We got another lost and founder." They'd have some kind of, transmissional system where you can, but they don't have that in heaven. They don't
no,
have those things.
no,
But
because
anyway,
they've got Mena on the phone lines,
right,
and
right,
he's a jokester, right? So he's like, just cut the phone lines out.
right. It's like billable, accounts payable. Hell, so I was like, oh, okay. I was like, hey, I'm an affair, you know, sorry about that earlier. Can you, can, can you can you please help my kid? So we leave, and on Monday she calls. She says, "Oh, I found the cross." Right. So of course that's just like, again, hundreds of people have these silly stories, but I thought, here am I, never thinking, here I am always thinking that I can do it on my own with God. Even though we say, we boldly approach, without fear, with boldness. And there's no doubt about it that we approach with boldness. But why have I been ignoring this entire victorious church that God has put into my hands? Like I thought, we all have a guardian angel. I've never asked my children's guardian angels for anything, but why don't I include, asking intercessory prayers for them? Or for me, I've never spoken to my guardian angel, and then you get the stories of Embakoulos and Saint Mena. I always looked at that, I was like, that's just a whole bunch of, malarkey. Like, I don't have to believe that. I don't believe it. But I'm like, that's why he had such a strong relationship, is because he really believed in this, that we don't live in this just a materialist world. That when St. Paul said we battle against not flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities and powers. I always thought that was very esoteric too. It was far removed, like, oh, up in heaven, the angels or whatever's going on there. I didn't think that in our day-to-day choices that there's an actual spiritual battle going on, that we can either the choice we have isn't between right and wrong. The choice we have is between God's given us the opportunity to be God in every single interaction that we make, every single choice that we have. Am I choosing to be God in this choice, or am I choosing not to be God in this choice? Because if I continue to choose to be God, then God will lead me on that path to being God. And if I choose not to be God, well, I talk so
And
much.
just for the sake of clarity, be like God, or you can even use divine, but some people would be uncomfortable with
And
the.
they might be uncomfortable, but that's not my problem. When they get to heaven, they can take it up with Saint Cyril and Saint Gregory and Saint Athanasius, who got us into this mess to begin with. So they can do that if they want, but I'm not gonna water down my
Well,
faith.
but it is more precise to say to be like God, and it is more precise to be divine, because it cannot be misconstrued for being God in essence and being sort of like a replacement for capital G God.
I think if someone wants to find that in what we're saying, then someone will find that in what we're saying. But the
That's
reality is,
literally the servants meeting I just gave on Sunday.
what was the service meeting?
The servants meeting was, what do you mean? And the double meaning there is, if you don't know what you're saying, don't say anything. Like, if you don't know
Right,
what you mean, like, don't talk. And if you do know what you mean, then use the proper terminology, and be
right,
as clear as you can. And if you hear
absolutely.
somebody say something, right, that sounds a little off, then the second meeting is ask, like, what do you mean? Right? And like, nobody would ask Ralph, what do you mean? Do you mean that you are going to be a member of the Trinity and
The
you're the fourth hypostasis? Like,
Pentecrator.
no, I mean that the God in essence is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and God became man so that I could become. And
Don't
again,
be afraid to say it. Don't
I
be
prefer
afraid to
Or
say
divine.
by
it.
grace, yeah.
I prefer divine, or like
Don't be.
God, because I have to. The less I have to explain myself, the happier I am.
But the silliness of the argument, the silliness of the counter argument, and even the straw man that is thrown up, the silliness of that is that God is the infinite of infinites of infinite. He's beyond infinite. He's God. And if I am on a journey to become God, even if it's an infinite journey, I will never reach him. So there's no
Huh.
the idea that, oh, you think you're going to be God. I'm not some kind of, the Hindu sitting in some kind of, whatever they do,
I
thinking
think
these
this is
weird
where
thoughts.
Cherif explains that the ambiguity of the Arabic language lends itself to more potential confusion, that is maybe less likely in the English language. Is that a fair assessment, Cherif?
Yeah, like if you like, for example, we spoke about the word hypostasis, which is translated in English as person, but if you translate it in Arabic as shakhs, that creates a lot of ambiguity.
Right. But is shakhs
So
individual or is shakhs?
it
What is
can go,
shakhs?
shakhs can go both way, individual and person. But in Islamic mindset,
Mhm.
and the majority of Copts have Islamic mindset, whether we like it or we don't like it.
Right.
This can go to an individual more than a person or a persona or prosopon or whatever. But to your particular point, it's a trip to become God or divine or like God. Again, in Arabic, they create way more transfusion, because in Arabic it's يؤله. يؤله is making Allah, and Allah in the Islamic mindset is unattainable, like it's
Yes.
far away. While we have Emmanuel nearby. But back a little bit back to the point of the demons. I think because I don't know why, but we usually underestimate the work of demon in our life. And like I had this discussion with Mena before, do you really believe in demons, or it's my own inclination?
Well, for the longest, look, I believe most of them, I think, are my inclination made with a catalyst from a demon. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's
There
it's
is a
like I
synergy
carry
here.
yeah, I carry
Right.
around a gas tank, and he throws a match in a tank, and that's
And Mina's got the match.
yeah.
On the other hand, if we really believe in demons, how we can invest in our relationship with the other part of the spiritual realm, the angels, the saints, how we, like when I was younger, I used to hate Saint Mary, for example, really hate her, because she was portrayed as one that is the top of the class, that nobody can reach her, and you are all like healthy animals. If you can control your anger, look at Saint Mary. If you can control your lust, look at Saint Mary. If you can control
Yeah.
your hunger, look at Saint Mary, because she's the top of the class.
She's like the
Oh,
older
wow.
sister that you're never going to be as good at.
Yeah. So you used to hate her.
Wow. Really?
Really?
I've
Like,
literally
Wait, up
never heard
until what age?
anybody say
Never, ever, ever. I've
never
heard
in my life.
I I've spoken to Satanists who've never said that. I've spoken to people who've actually sacrificed children on altars who are like, oh,
They're like,
Mary, yeah,
nah, but
she's
to say
cool.
Mary, like, no,
Mary is
Yeah.
good.
yeah, say Mary. Yeah.
She's nice. She's cute. But then one time in the fast, as a feast, as a fasting of Saint Mary, like my spiritual father said, I know you have a problem with this guy in church, a relative in church or a friend in church. What about you ask Saint Mary for help with this? And at the end of the 2 weeks, the whole relation changed. He didn't change, I didn't change for sure, but the relations, the impressions, like the whole beef and stuff, change and continue to change afterwards. So that made me change. Maybe I was wrong. And then when I was in, like when I in the late years of high school, we used to, in summertime, we used to pray tasbaha, midnight praises almost every day, like a monastery. We finish our nadi, our camp, or whatever, and we end with tasbah. Our soccer games, so I attend tasbah 2 to 3 times per week. Other attended more. And going through the Theotokes, I really understood who is Saint Mary. What is the meaning of the pride of our race? What is the meaning, like you are the logical net or something like that, the Sunnah al-Aqli. And so on and so forth, till I discovered, oh wow, I need to use, I need to get the benefit of it, and I need to establish a relationship. I need to invoke not only Saint Mary, but other saints too.
Yeah.
And this, I used to hate, for example, Abuna Tadrus Ya'ub for the same reason. He's the top of the class. And you suck. All of you suck. But then I knew him in person, and so on and so forth. So the question is, why do we undermine the effect of demonic warfare on ourselves and our kids? The kids are not listening in Sunday school because they are misbehaving. No, I think they are attacked vigorously in Sunday school for misbehaving. It's not just, oh, their parents didn't teach them, or this kid has ADHD, or the teacher is boring, or the class is too hot. No, I think now, each one of the kids is being subject to a very hard warfare when he's sitting in class.
That's such great insight. I think you're right. Absolutely right. Why would we think that the demons are silent inside a Sunday school class? Like, why? You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
I'm not going to disagree. I will say, though, that the counterpoint is also valid, which is, and this is something that Cherif and I have also talked about, where you can get all wrapped up in this sort of thing, and then that becomes like sort of like the superstitious reality that you live in, where I don't think that there is just like we've talked about lots of times about lots of other things, I don't think that there is a healthy extreme, right? Like a healthy balance is, yes, like I want to have a good relationship with the saints as long as it doesn't become a replacement for my relationship with God. I want to have a healthy awareness of the demonic as long as it doesn't become an obsession or,
Or a
this.
scapegoat, like
Right.
yeah.
Oh, like, oh, what was I gonna do? Is demonic warfare. Like, I'm like, okay, like
Fight
you
it.
you were the one not paying attention. You were the one that was late. You were the one that, like, whatever it was, right? So, I think I personally, like, if this is Ralph 2.0, I resemble more Ralph 1.0, right? Which is the right? I have, and Cherif and I have talked about this before also, like I have seen like things that are incontrovertible miracles, right? Or like, the yes or no question, do miracles happen? Yes. Like that, like with no hesitation. However, you know, am I leaving something on the table because I am not sort of invoking or asking God for these miracles? I'm comfortable with that, right? Like I'm lucky enough and I'm blessed enough that, like, okay, I don't, like, my entire life is a miracle. Like I'm so grateful that, like, I don't need something else that's like another magic trick that God, does to
Oh,
show
but
me.
my repentance is a miracle, and I
Yes.
need to ask for this.
Yes, and right, but that is like, I don't think even Ralph 1.0 would have said that doesn't fall within the requirements, right?
Right.
The requirements are the existence of God, the Trinity, sacrament of confession, repentance.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not walking away from any of these things,
Right.
but anything that is non-essential, I think, is a beautiful thing, and I think what I would rather do is, instead of ask for more miracles, accept more things that are happening as miracles, right? It's a miracle that the three of us are recording on a Tuesday when we scheduled a recording for Thursday, right? Like,
Right.
like, thank God, right? And, it will be another small miracle that Mitch, this time fault of his own, this one not no fault of his own, but it'll be a small miracle where he's actually recording with us, right? And I think Matthews is busy this week, right? It'll be a small miracle for him to record with us next week or the week after, right? So just anything that is a source of goodness and joy, accepting that as a miracle, to me, that is equal and in some ways superior to the, like, perpetual asking of more things and asking in faith.
So let me tell you a story if you have time. So one of the noble families in Egypt after the revolution of 1952, one lady of it, her husband was killed during the trouble of 1952 Many years later, she started to know Abu Nabshoy, Kamel, and she started to read about Christianity, and she wanted to convert and be baptized. So for 3 years, he kind of taught her, and at the end, he baptized her, and she became Christians. When her sons, who were a part of the nobility in Egypt, they started to attack her, and one of her sons came to her kitchen, took a knife, and tried to kill her. And all of a sudden, Christ himself appeared in the kitchen. Very bright, very luminous, very beautiful. So the son got scared, and he left her away, and she lived after this about 30 years. Do you think the miracle, or she perceives the miracle, what's the miracle in her life? Is her relationship with Abu Nabshoy for 3 years to transform her, or the moment where Christ appeared to her?
Right.
I think the miracle is the former, not the latter.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Both
agree
are
100%.
both are miraculous, but the son saw Christ in the kitchen, and he didn't believe, and he didn't convert. But she saw Christ through Abu Nabshoy for 3 years. I knew this woman of blessed memory now, and she said she told us the story.
And I will say that as a skeptic and as someone who's like, like really, like I'll confess, like this past Sunday was the miracle of Saint Mary and the iron bars, or
Yeah.
Saint Matthias, and like I'm like, oh come on, like. صوتي خلاص like come on, like ماشي خلص, like we don't need the mumbo jumbo, right? But like I have to discipline myself and be like, Mena, like zip it, like this is real, and this is part of it. And one of those moments of I guess clarity or insight was one of the many, 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 many times where we're bowing, and Abuna says, "And this bread, he makes it into his holy body, and this cup and like at least 90% of the time, I'm like, really, you think so? Like,
Really?
oh yeah,
Oh,
like
no.
oh yeah, constantly,
Oh,
and
no.
and and
You're
and I make sure that I say out loud, right, in those moments, amen, I believe, right? I don't just let the deacon say it. I don't just, I don't let everybody else say it on my behalf. I say
right.
it myself,
I say it myself too.
right? And I want to remind
But
myself,
I say it
like,
because I believe it.
well, I, I,
How you
I,
can believe it if you don't doubt?
exactly. Like, and I say with the man and who wanted his son to be healed, where Christ asks him, like, do you believe? And he says, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Right? Where it's like, no, like, and we just and in Sunday school we just talked about John 6. And John 6 is a central chapter.
Yes.
And for me, my favorite part is where he says, eat my body.
Leave.
Right? Yeah, get out of here.
Leave.
And then he turns to the disciples and he goes, "Are you
Yeah,
going to go also?"
leave.
And
Leave.
and like St. Peter says what I would have said, which is like,
Yeah. I got nowhere else to go, bro.
yeah, we're yeah. Like he doesn't go like, "This is awesome. Like,
Right.
thank you
Yeah, of
so much.
course
We
not.
can't wait to eat your body and drink
Of
your blood." He
course
just
not, because
goes,
Jesus sounds insane.
right, right. So it's not this like, but what I'm getting at is that this one time it occurred to me that I'm asking for an even greater miracle than for bread and wine to become body and blood. The greater miracle is for me to be a decent person. Like that would be the miracle of miracles, where like I can have a decent human interaction without judgment, without criticism, without like, oh my God, like just like when is this conversation going to be over, right? Like if I can be a decent person, that's a miracle, right? Bread and wine becoming body and blood, that doesn't seem so hard compared to what I would consider to be the greater miracle, which is the work that God is doing in our lives.
I do I there is no there is no sliding scale of miracles that we measure miracle
Mhm.
against miracle with. I do not think I don't want to go into this tangent, but I don't think the body and blood of Christ uh, on the Eucharist is fits in the definition of miracle. Okay, it's not a miracle. It's a miracle. A miracle isn't and but when it's finding my kid's cross, and a miracle isn't life and this beautiful breeze and the birth of a human and society and me, you know, reconciling with my
So how do
uncle.
you, because I define a miracle as anything where the finite meets the infinite in a way that is beyond the comprehension of the finite.
Right,
How do
right.
how do you
So
how do you define a miracle?
a miracle is, by definition, a miracle has to be rare.
Okay,
Um,
so I don't
uh,
I don't
Mm,
I don't share that
no.
definition of miracle. Rarity is
Eh,
not
There,
something that.
rare.
no.
Otherwise, it's not a miracle. It has to be. It has to be something that is. If it happens every day, it's not a miracle because it happens every day.
Well, that's the transformation of our life after Christ. It's a continuous mystery that sometimes we comprehend, sometimes we don't comprehend. But it's the whole continuous mystery. Like, but I agree with you that the body and blood is a reality that surpasses miracle, or it's a reality that
Right. It's
makes
not. It's not.
miracle, or like
Right. Here's
taught miracle.
Yeah, here's the dictionary definition. An extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs, an extremely outstanding or unusual event, thing, or accomplishment. It has to be, by definition, rare. And my relationship with Jesus, maybe the way I got to him could be a miracle where all of a sudden you know, I'm standing in a room and I look down and there's a crucifix and I take it inside and then Jesus speaks to me in some way. Okay, that could be a miracle, but my falling at his feet is what's to be expected when you stand before God. Like I just that's not a miracle that the miracle is that he condescended himself enough to even countenance my filthiness, and that's the miracle. My turning around is demanded. you know
But not everybody does it.
Not everyone does it, but not
Like
everyone
this,
joins the army. Not
like
everyone
the
joins
son of the
not
lady, he saw Christ himself and he didn't believe.
Yeah, you're right. Not everyone does. Not everyone does. Not everyone does. The Jews that walked around with him. What do you mean? They're Pharisees and they crucified him.
Mhm.
What happened with John and James and Peter and Thomas? That wasn't miraculous. He said, "Follow me," and they followed him. You know, the ones who didn't follow him, that's just,
I think sometimes maybe we're mixing miracles and signs.
And I do agree that something that is um uh a like a promise of God, right? Where like you don't need to ask. Like God said, you know, the descent of the Holy Spirit in the Eucharist, this is my body, this is my blood.
Right.
I'm using the word miracle loosely there, like as as a proxy for an interaction with the divine that is like I like if it's so predictable it's not really miraculous. Like I agree with that, but I'm using the word loosely, deliberately on both ends. One that is a predictable relationship with God in the liturgy, and one that is a predictable, mundane, daily thing that I want to include God in as participation in and like this is the capital S sacrament, this is the sacramental life, this is the capital M miracle, this is the miraculous life. And like I think finding God in that mundane day to day is all I'm trying to get at as
There's
something that
and that's beautiful. And we need to sacramentalize every single one of our interactions and our relationships, because then we will be Christ to these people and they will be Christ to us. And that's, Jesus said, how they will know that that I'm God by your love for one another. So you're right. We need to do that in every single one of our interactions. But, I mean, Jesus resurrected from the dead. And when he resurrected from the dead, that means that everything he said before he resurrected is true. If he said, this is my body and this is my blood, then it must be his body and his blood, because he said he was going to resurrect. And that's even crazier. And he resurrected. So it must be his body and blood. When he says, get that, get down and confess to another man, another failure like you are, and confess and repent, and I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to give him the authority to loose and bind what's on earth. Well, I got to believe it because he resurrected from the dead. So it's not because I want to believe these things. Trust me, I am a minimalist. Like I said, I do not want to believe them. But the man resurrected from the dead. And if he resurrected from the dead, everything else he said has to be true, whether I can fit it into my puny little brain or not,
including stuff that like might be like
including stuff that might be like that. But let me tell
yeah.
you, I had a very limited, very tiny, even now when you say miracles, I'm like, I'm limiting my, I want to believe in miracles, but I'm limiting my definition of miracles. Most of the books I read from these, I remember these 19 series or 19 different books on Embacrolus, and I'm not trashing. I love Embacrolus. That's great. But I look at some of these books and it's just like, oh,
Like, did this really happen?
is this really a miracle? Like, I
Right.
asked him to fix my tape deck, and I was driving once in an old, like I had a Pontiac Grand Prix, and the tape deck was broken. I looked down, there was remember we had cassettes, right?
Mhm.
There was a cassette of Emma Close. I put the cassette in Emma Close, and it came and it started working. But am I going to put that in a book? Like,
Listen, I would rather believe that something so mundane is a miracle than for God to feel like there's all this like, hey, I'm over here. I'm over here. And I'm
right?
like, no, not a miracle. No, not a miracle. Right. I would rather err on the side of believing something is miraculous and it's not than to have
Oh,
missed an
okay.
opportunity for
Oh,
God
yeah.
to try to
That's
right
Yeah,
like
that's
it,
good. That's good.
like
That's good.
if I'm the one that's abit that like
Yeah.
thank you God for like helping me find my keys, and God's like, what,
Right.
your keys were gone, I didn't notice.
Right. Right.
Right. And like God's gonna be like, okay, you're welcome, I guess. I don't know,
Right.
like thank you, like if people thank us for stuff that like we don't feel like
Right.
we need to be
Right.
thanked for, like,
Right. You like them
like that's,
more.
yeah, that's cute, that's nice, and I want God to like me.
One of the funny stories about miracles that I refuse to believe. There was this, I've always heard this story about this one woman got cancer, and the Virgin Mary came to her and healed her of the cancer, and then she walked away, and there was like this, blood and a rag everywhere and some kind of thing. It's like, oh, see, the Virgin Mary healed the cancer. I'm like, why would the Virgin Mary need to like perform a surgery? Like, why is there gauze? And, like, what did she do? What did she do?
But by
Do you
the
believe
way,
those
this
stories, Cherif?
story, well, those stories are repeated multiple times.
Do you believe
And
that story? Look at him.
well, it happens. Happens like yeah. And as Mia said, I prefer to be the abit here. Like, well, if it
Like
happens.
I'm losing absolutely nothing thanking God for things that God's like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Right? Like I don't think we can ever be faulted for being too grateful.
No, absolutely right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the Screwtape Letters hasn't come up.
Well, I was just.
I'm rereading it
Oh,
actually. Of Ram Wahba, my buddy sent me a recording of John Cleese, reading the Screwtape Letters, and actually, like chapter one, um, there's like the word argument like said like several times, and one of my favorite Monty Python sketches of all time is the argument sketch. So I sent him the recording of the Monty Python sketch, and I'm like, this is chapter one of your recording that you sent me. But it's actually like it's exactly what we're talking about, that like this calculated, um exacting warfare that is being waged against goodness, um is not something that we should take lightly.
Yeah, and teaching, or like for servant, teaching the spiritual warfare techniques and tactics and strategies, we are missing on that.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, because we're afraid of being perceived as cuckoo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you asked me, you're like, I think you were expecting me to say, like, no, I think it's like psychological and like more human nature and like our fallen, blah, 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 blah. And like, I don't really believe, but I think you were surprised maybe to hear like, no, like, I don't know how you can believe in God without believing in demons, right? Like,
Exactly.
Right.
there has to, like, like, you can't pick and choose what you consider to be acceptable to your modern enlightened brain. Like like it's either all real or it's all cuckoo. And if it's all real, then the spiritual warfare is a genuine and concerning thing worthy of our attention and concern.
And technically, the sacrament of reconciliation will be or should be the strategic warfare education series.
Yeah, if done properly, sure. Yeah. And the Screwtape Letters should be required reading.
Yeah.
Oh,
The curriculum.
absolutely.
All right, guys.
Absolutely.
Let's wrap up for the sake of time and continue with Mitch when it is actually Thursday, and Matthew hopefully next week when he has time. Till next time on I Mustache You Something. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.